Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday chat today has got some orchids in it and I've had to do some preparation in order to do that, but that's at the end, mainly because I'll have to take the camera off the tripod. So what's been going on then? Not a lot. I've always envisaged what the media would do if nothing happened. You know, the 6 o'clock news, da 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 da. Today, nothing happened. See ya. Well, it's a bit like that at the moment because there's not a lot going on. And there's no shows. I've got no more Orchid Society meetings till next year. It's a quiet spell. Every now and again, like every couple of weeks, I have a look at how the lights are doing. Not the effect they're having, just where the daylight and times and things are. And I've just had a look today, and we're down to less than 9 hours official daylight. And the first thing I did when I started with the lights was I was looking at the system that I use to give me the times. That gives daily sunrise and sunset and number of hours, that sort of stuff. Gives you a lot of other stuff as well, but that's what I need. And the thing that's become obvious is the start time and the end time and the number of hours is not proper daylight. There's half an hour either end of that is not classed as light for growing plants. It's getting light and getting dark. So I knock an hour off that, so whereas it says, like at the moment, it's 8 3/4 hours I think today, well I make that 7 3/4 to knock off the 2.5 hours either end. So we're getting to, it says it gets light around 7:30, 20 past 7, something. Well no it doesn't, it's not properly light till about 8 o'clock. And on a dull day it never gets properly light. So I'm going at the moment, for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to use 8 o'clock as my start time. And it says it gets dark sometime after 4. Really it's starting to get dark about 3:30. And what I don't want to happen is the plants to have a reaction to the daylight dropping and deciding, oh it's nearly night time, I'll start closing down, and then I turn the lights on. I want the lights on before the plants react to the change in daylight. So I'm looking at sort of 3:30. So if you go 8 o'clock till midday is 4 hours, till 3:30, that makes that 7.5 hours of daylight I don't have to pay for. And then we get to the daylight I do have to pay for. And to keep it at 12 hours, obviously, you know, there's an amount of time the lights have to be on. So at the moment I'm going to be, for the next couple of weeks, the lights are going to go on about 3:30 and they'll go on about 7:30. That's not an exact thing, it's not exactly the same every day. Sometimes I'll be sitting down thinking, oh it must be about tea time now. Oh crikey, I haven't turned the lights on. It's not an exact science, and no, I'm not getting a timer. I might have to one day, but at the moment I don't need to. Yeah, so that's the lights. The effect they're having on the plants, I can't really tell. I don't think I'm going to be able to tell till, well, I'm not sure I ever will, because all I can say is that they're doing okay. What I can't say is how they'd be doing if the lights weren't there, because that's not happening. And last year, this time, I just had a bad growing season, following a bad winter. Nothing was really doing brilliantly at this, you know, this sort of time last year. But this year we're not doing bad. Things are doing okay now. So hopefully the lights will keep things going and not allow things to go downhill during the winter, which is what I don't want. Because if they're not in good health when you go into winter, and the winter puts them down even more, some of them might not come out of it the other end, which is what happened last winter. Lots didn't come out of it. So hopefully we'll be okay this time round. Now I've had a decision. In the dendrobium world, I won't be getting any more resting type dendrobiums, because I might get an odd nobly if I see something a bit special in the bloom front, because those I can manage. But the ones I don't really want any more of are the ones that bloom once a year, and the blooms only last like 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops. And they don't ever bloom again. So you're working hard, doing the winter rest, trying to keep them going in the summer, feeding water well, all that sort of stuff for 3 weeks worth of blooms. So I'm not going to get any more that fit that category. I'll try and keep going the ones that I've still got, which is not that many. There's a lot of those are the main sorts that went down, that I lost. So we won't be getting any more of them. In the dendrobium world, I would like to try and get some Cuthbertsonii, because they're cool growers and they probably will do okay in this environment. Now Lynn's got quite a lot of those. I might be able to get a couple of offshoots from Lynn when she repots, if she splits things up. So that's one type. I got rid of my moniliform. Again, Lynn's got a huge collection of those. Lots of named varieties as well, with the Japanese names. That is a cool grower. That would probably do okay now. That went downhill in the last place. It only lasted a couple of years, and it just didn't like the summers, you know. So that might do okay. So there's a few dendrobiums that I could go for to sort of get the numbers back up a little bit. But the physical number of orchids I've got now, I don't want that changing too much. I mean, I've got extra shelving in here at the moment because the Cymbidiums had to come back in. And obviously when they go back out, the shelf that they were on outside goes back out with them. So I won't be gaining any room when the Cymbidiums go out. I will be able to spread plants out a bit more when the lights come down, because everything's sort of been raised up and squashed together to take advantage of the lights. So things will be able to spread out a bit more next year. My change over to try the liquid feed, I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference, quite honestly, but it's readily available for me to get in this country without having to pay ridiculous shipping costs, because the MSU had to come over from the States. The actual tub that I got was about 20 something pounds, and it was £40 to ship it, you know, so £60 worth. But it sounds an awful lot until you stop and think, well, you're feeding 150 orchids, and I've had that 3 years at least, and I haven't used half of it yet. So it's very economical to use. Well, at the strength I've been using it, that needs to bump up a bit as well. It's happened several times to me in the past where I've thought I might be feeding a bit heavy. You know, orchids in the wild don't get that much food, they seem to do okay, all that sort of stuff, blah 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 sort of thing. And then all of a sudden I find somebody who, you know, knows quite a bit more than me about feeding, and they're feeding at much higher rates. So I sort of think, oh, I've been starving my plants, I'd better bump it up. And then gradually it falls down again. I'm not sure that's a bad thing. But certainly my Cymbidiums were grossly underfed. Never mind, we can rectify that next year. When we get them outside, they can be fed differently next year. They are worth bothering for. If I'm going to have the flipping things, then I need to do my best for them and not just chuck them out in the garden and neglect them. Just go like that with a hose every now and again when it's dry. That's not good enough. If I'm going to have them, I need to look after them better than that. So Oncidium types, at the moment, I mean, I've got a little batch over here that were my twinkles that got taken off their mounts. They were doing poorly, they'd gone downhill, they've gone into pots, and they're only just starting to recover. But if you take that out of the scenario, all the other Oncidium types bar one are doing fine. Bar two, I've just seen another one that's not happy. And all of Derek's plants under here, they're all Oncidium types. They've all got new growths, and they've all grown some roots since they were all repotted in the spring. All what's left of them. I've lost some. They were in a poor state when I got them. But the ones that I've got seem to be recovering. some have recovered, they're doing fine, and they won't need a repot come this coming year. As long as they still fit in their pots, they can stay there for another year, because they got put in bark with some grow stones and a bit of charcoal. So that won't have gone off in 12 months, will it? So they don't need a repot in the spring. They can be left undisturbed. Get some strength into them perhaps. That's that. My Cattleyas, there are so few left now. There's one over there that's still mounted that's doing poorly, not doing well at all. There's a little one over here that came off of a mount that's got a new growth, but it's undersized. There's my BC Mackay, the David Saunders, that got thrown out, that didn't make it. The BC Mackay got put in Let's Grow Some Roots media, it doesn't seem to be growing, not yet, it may do. And then up here we've got a couple. I mean, there are some that are doing okay. I mean, this is doing okay as Cattleyas go. I mean, that's got a nice new growth, the one nearest to you. Yeah, it's got a second new growth there. It's got some good roots. It's doing okay. Well, that one's never bloomed for me, so hopefully that sheath in that new growth is actually going to get some buds going. If not, maybe the next one. You know, so although I haven't got many Cattleyas now, you know, there's a couple that I've got that are doing okay, but not many at all. Yeah. So generally speaking, my Cotyledons seem to be doing okay again. Again, there's one that's not, and that's one that I've just bought, and I bought it in this state. And I bought it in this state because of what I hope it will become. But that's not a very good plant, but it's either got a spike or a new growth coming at the base of this growth here. That's the only poor Cymbidium I've got, and hopefully I will pull that on as next year progresses. It's not going to do much through the winter, I don't suppose. So, generally speaking, I mean, I've got some monster Oncidium types. I mean, that Catatanti over there only just fits on a big shelf, you know, so there's some pretty big stuff lying around. My Masdevallias are all doing well. I mean, just picking the first one off the end of the shelf. It's a nice looking plant. It's got loads of new growths on it. Don't see any spikes, but loads of new growths will do for me as far as Masdevallias are concerned. So they seem to be doing okay here. So I've got no qualms about picking an odd one of those up if I see a nice one. I might try some Draculas again. I mean, I've only ever had a couple, and they failed miserably around the other place, understandably. But it's worth giving them another go. If the Masdevallias are doing okay, then the Draculas should do okay. Their only problem is most of them push their spikes out through the base of the plant, so they have to go in an open basket. So you've got to watch the watering, don't let them get dry and all that sort of stuff. And to enable those spikes to hang down, the plant's got to hang up. And if you hang it up, bright light, which they don't want. So they're a little bit of a, I might just stick with the Masdevallias because I can stick them on a shelf that's not so bright. But yeah, generally speaking, we're sort of doing okay. The odont type, cooler growing Oncidiums, they seem to be doing better around here than they certainly did around the other place. So yeah, we're doing okay. Certainly better than last year. I'm going into winter with hope of most things coming out the other end. Whereas last year, I had a poor growing season the year before, and I went into winter with a lot of plants in a sorry state, and a fair few of those just didn't come out the other end. This year I've had a better growing season because I've had a better understanding of how this place works compared with the other place, so sort of getting there. Right, so as I said, there's no news really, because there's nothing upcoming as far as things are concerned. I'm not sure about doing any more garden visits this year because I've missed most of the autumn colours now, which would be the point this time of year obviously. So that visit I did on the gardening channel to Compton Acres, that was the first and probably the last for this year. But we will be doing some more of those types of things last year. If you didn't get to see those videos, I do recommend you pop across to the gardening channel, Roger's New Garden, and watch the latest 2 videos over there. It is a very special place, and I'd appreciate the people that going over there and watching it actually subscribe if they're not actually done so, and it helps bump the watch hours. The gardening channel now, we're up to 450 subscribers. I need 500, so that's not bad. Those will come. Problem being that there won't be many videos through the winter. There isn't much to do in the garden during the winter. I've still got a bit of autumn pruning to do, which I will film. I might even do some of that next week if the flipping rain stops. Really had enough of that now. There's none today at the moment, and yet looking out through the gap in the hedge there, it's black over there. That bit over there is night time, and this bit over here is not much better now. But there is some blue sky. But rain just on and on and on. Yeah, so there is still a little bit to film out in the garden. A little bit of trimming to do, not much. Stuff I can get on with and do on my own at my leisure, and none of it's urgent. So, but yeah, those 2 videos of that Compton Acres, that is a pretty special place. I will return there probably once a month next year. My only worry is that the time of year I went this time, which was last week, it's not a busy time for the town. You get into sort of June, July, August, September time of year, and this whole area is absolutely heaving with visitors. And what do visitors do? What are we going to do today then? Oh, that looks interesting. And you get to a lovely, peaceful woodland walk, and it's suddenly full of people and kids charging around all over the place. It won't be the same. And the trouble is, they don't open early. See, if in the summer they opened at 7 in the morning, I'd be there at 7 in the morning, and I'd at least have the first hour or so to myself. But they don't open till 10. You know, even holiday makers are up and about by then. Well, some of them. Yes, but I will try and visit there regular, and obviously film each time. I think the spring display is going to be pretty good. The spring bulbs, I assume there are some there, you know. Might be some bluebells in the shady wooded areas, things like that. Anyway, we'll go and find out. And then there is going to be mass displays of the dwarf rhododendrons, well, what I call azaleas, the evergreen azaleas, which are underplanted under the trees in many, many places. Of course, at the moment, there's no sign that they even flower, they're just green bushes. You get there the right time of year, there's going to be a blaze of colour from those. That will be quite spectacular. And I will look up other places to visit as well. Right, before I get the camera off the tripod and we look at some orchids, thanks to everybody who supports this and the other 2 channels. Your support is most appreciated. And that's all the thank yous I'm doing this week. I know people get a bit fed up with it, but I would feel guilty if I didn't thank the people supporting the channel in whatever way they do. Quite honestly, for me, it would be rude not to, but I think it would also be rude to do it in every single video, so I don't. But anyway, if you're not subscribed, it would be nice if you did so. And don't forget the thumbs up when you watch one of the videos. It all helps the channel grow. And if you haven't gone across to the gardening channel, I recommend you go and see those latest 2 videos. And again, please subscribe if you're not. And again, don't forget the thumbs up. The Bonsai channels, well, there's just not much going on at the moment. There really isn't. And there won't be till the spring. And when I put a video up on the Bonsai channel, I'll let you know on the Orchid channel. Because not everybody wants to set notifications and get pestered with emails. Yes, so we'll leave it at that. Right, and I'll get the camera off the tripod and we'll have a look at some orchids. Right, we're going to have a look at the Cymbidiums. apart from two, and the reason I'm not including two of them is that they are the final pair for the project orchids, which are going to be filmed on Friday. It's silly looking at them today when I'm going to film them in detail on Friday as part of the 2023 project orchids. In fact, that will be the last video of the project orchids for the year on Friday. I may do one follow-up video on the project orchids, which is a summing up of the project, the concept of the project, why I think some bits worked, why I think some of it didn't work, and my ideas for project orchids to continue in some shape or form, but that will be later in the week. Right, so I got my little turntable out because these are heavy. I can't hold these up in the air and the camera. This is the Jamie Red. This came from the Mather's Foundation on a visit, but it's not one of their plants, it's one of the nursery that use the same greenhouse to grow their Cymbidiums. They only sell online, that nursery, but they're quite happy for people visiting Mather's to buy them, and then Mather's reimburse them, obviously. So this is where this one came from. This has got two new growths, one in the centre of the plant, one over to the side here. They're both pushing on nicely. This was a late bloomer, so this is a summer blooming plant. So this is not going to get its spikes triggered by the cooling down of the nights that the winter and early spring bloomers need to generate their spikes. This plant won't work that way. What I suspect generates the spikes on these type, the summer bloomers, is the increase in temperatures and day length as winter finishes and spring starts. So the summer blooming Cymbidiums work more like other types of orchids, I would think, and it's the end of winter that triggers them. So through the winter these growths will continue and mature and hopefully produce some nice big bulbs, and yeah, it's a nice plant. This is the thing with the Cymbidiums. I want to try and maintain the plants. Obviously I want them to bloom, but the plants I've got are in good condition. You'll be able to tell the condition they're in when I show you the last one. And that's what they shouldn't look like. But this is what they should look like. All nice green leaves, no brown tips, nice bulbs, nice and plump. Yeah? So I'm going to try and maintain them, and I'm hoping to do that by stonking up the feed in their main growing season next year. See, now this one's growing now, so you know when I water the Cymbidiums they get a high level of feed, and I think I'm going to do that throughout the year because there'll be something going on. They're either producing spikes, maintaining the blooms, pushing on the growths, growing new roots. They're going to be doing something at most times of the year, so I'm just going to feed them. And you know, so be it. They won't get watered as often in here in the winter because I don't want them soggy. But when they get watered, they will get some feed. So that's the first one. I'm going to shut down between each one. No, I'm not. I can just lift that off, can't I? Pop that down there. And bring the next one across. Won't be able to do this for all of them, but those two I can. Right, this is Tiger Tail. Again, this was one that bloomed late into the year last year, and this has got lots of little new growths in many places. What is that? Nothing. So it's got lots of little new growths pushing on. It doesn't have huge bulbs, and it's not a huge plant. One of the reasons I picked it, it's not a giant, it's not a miniature, we'll see one of them in a minute, but it's not far off a miniature. That's a miniature. You look at the size of the leaves, and look at the size of the leaves here. This is not far off a miniature, and it has lovely blooms, and it's a nice healthy plant, and it's a large plant. And what I'm looking for on my Cymbidiums is old bulbs with no leaves on. Can you see any? Did you see any on this one? I haven't got any. In the main, these are leaved bulbs. We haven't got any leafless bulbs yet. Well, we will have in a minute, but not yet. Right, so that's that one. It's doing okay. There's no spikes growing or anything yet. It's maturing the new growths at the moment and pushing them on. So there won't be any spikes on that probably till end of winter, as it's a late bloomer. Then we'll have a look at what is classed as a true miniature. And again, what we can say about this one is we look at the previous bulbs. We do have a back bulb, dead bulb on this one. This would be a difficult plant to get hold of, I suspect, as it came from Rislington. They tend to deal mainly in species, not in hybrids. So I might try and propagate from that back bulb. It's solid as a rock, so it's not going over. But have a look at the other two that Rislington grew. Look at the length of the leaves. Look at the size of the bulbs. Now look at the length of the leaves and the size of the bulb that I've grown. I'm pleased because these leaves are firm. They're not loose and floppy. It strikes me that this was grown at Rislington with possibly insufficient light. And that might be because it didn't go outside, and mine did. So it's grown firm, good coloured leaves, and it's got a lovely bulb. And I've just noticed we've got a spike. So we are going to see these delicate little beauties again. That will be stunning because the blooms on that were absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, so that's my miniature. And like I say, if we put the pots at the same height and then have a look at the leaves, yeah? Well, this tiger tail is not far off a miniature. Right, I will have to turn the camera off now and have a shuffle round before we get the next one up. Now this would be classed as a full size or large Cymbidium. What possessed me to buy this, I really don't know. Well, the blooms is what it was, and the sheer number of spikes at the time, which I haven't replicated. It's a monster. It's huge. Obviously we've got two pushing on spikes here that have been staked because they're heavy, and the blooms are large and heavy as well. Again, we've got a good plant here in the main with good leaves. There's a yellowing leaf there, older part of the plant, and a bent leaf here. Considering these got blasted with hailstorms, heavy rain, wind, heat waves, the leaves are in pretty good condition on these. Oh, there's another spike coming there. Goody goody. I forget how many spikes this had when I bought it, but I think it was 5 or 6. Some open and some still to come. And this time I've only managed 2, but that makes 3. And I think it's just the stage at which the bulbs mature. So I'm just going around slowly to see if there's any more tucked away that I've missed. I don't think so, but I certainly had missed that one down there. So we've got blooms, we've got nice plump bulbs, and we've got nice leaves. It's a red admiral. Well, blow me. In the middle of winter. I can't believe that. It's middle of November. Anyway, I will zoom in, but I don't suppose you'll see much, and as soon as the zoom finishes it will fly away, I suspect. But a butterfly out this time of year is incredibly unusual. I suppose I can get any closer than that, can I? No, we've gone all blurry now. Anyway, what a surprise. I'll wait till the zoom comes out again now. There we go. Right, that's a slight distraction. A nice distraction, but I thought it was a leaf at first because the leaves are blowing around all over the place. You can see by the movement out here how blustery it is. Stuff blowing around all over the place. But as winds go, apart from the tree, or the top of the tree, this garden remains relatively sheltered because of the high sides. You know, you've got that massive side there, wind goes up over the top of that, and then down the bottom there's a fair bit of shelter, plus that house there stops the wind coming in from that direction. Got this tall fence this side, so it's pretty sheltered, this garden. It's like a little microclimate. Anyway, talking of microclimates. So anyway, this one is a true winter bloomer, because these blooms are going to be open probably in a couple of weeks. So we'll be at, you know, virtually at December by then. So this is a true winter bloomer, which means that the spikes are developed as those night temperatures drop down, sort of August, September time. That's when the embryo spike is produced inside the bulb. There's nothing on the outside at that point when it's formed. It then progresses and starts to grow out from the bulb later, but it's formed in those cooling nights. Right, so that's a monster as far as the plant size is concerned. If I do get any more Cymbidiums, I won't be getting any more that size. They just take up too much space. I've got a job to lift that. You know, when it's just been watered, it weighs a ton. So, but anyway, it's a nice plant. It's grown well, and next year it will grow much better because it will be fed. Yeah. So let's see how good we can do next year compared with this year. This year, everything in the Cymbidium world was underfed, apart from ones that are recent acquisitions that never went outside. They'll get their chance next year. But this would have been underfed. We'll make up for that next year. Right, so this is another biggie. This is a relatively recent acquisition. I bought this in October. So nothing on this plant is mine. This came from, well, I was going to say it came from Burnham's, but I bought it at our show off of Arthur. And so this has been grown probably at Burnham's in one of their back areas where they just chuckle their Cymbidiums, stacks of them in their cooler area. They don't put theirs outside, they have to make do. Anyway, a good plant, as you know, I always have a good check of plants, even if I'm getting them from Burnham's, where generally speaking you're looking at pretty reliable. But this one hasn't been repotted and hasn't been outside, and it's obviously a late summer bloomer, but that might not be true. That may have been forced and bought in by Burnham's to sell as a blooming plant, in which case it's out of season. I've got no way of telling. But there's no new growths on here. It's blooming at the moment. It's doing its thing with that. Once the blooming's finished, it will think about coming back into growth. And I'm hoping that that takes a while before that actually happens, because I want to take advantage and repot. This is a difficult plant to water because it's growing up out the pot. So as I pour water on it, the water just runs off. It doesn't get a chance to go down in. So I have to pour a lot of water on. And this is in a cocoa fibre type mix, I believe, which means once I do get water in there, I suddenly realise I've probably put too much in there because it's heavy and it's not a big pot. So anyway, lovely blooms. That's what attracted me. Nice colours, nice patterning, nice shape. So we'll see what we can do with that next year when it starts producing its new growths. It will need a bigger pot, I mean bigger round the top, because wherever the new growths come out, if I left it in that pot, they'd probably split the pot, because the whole plant is round, you know, is near the edge of the pot. So we'll get that one repotted at an appropriate time into a plant pot with a much wider rim to it. Just as deep, if not deeper. They like deep pots. They like a good root run. I think that really goes with the fact that the majority are terrestrials, so having a deep root run makes sense for them. They're not epiphytes. So, right, that's that one. No name on that, just a hybrid. Now most people leave the best till last. Not me. This is what a Cymbidium shouldn't look like. I have a friend who's a proper Cymbidium grower, does some hybridizing and wins all sorts of awards with his plants and stuff. And he disagreed with the fact that I thought this was a virused plant. He seems to think it's a really seriously stressed plant, and as a consequence there's cell damage that is showing on the leaves. But to all intents and purposes, these leaves really do look like they're on a virused plant. This looks like the mosaic virus to me. And although I'm going to go along with him to a degree, I'm not going along with him 100% and getting that anywhere near any of my other plants. So this lives in a separate place, gets watered separately as well. Well, it gets watered last. It's still going to produce a big spike though. Right, so this, 2 spikes, would you believe it? Shows the last time I looked at this. There's a spider in here that keeps making these really fine webs. It's not doing any harm, but it does make it look even more scruffy than it does anyway. But what we've got here is a nice bulb on top of this is one of my bulbs. The previous bulbs on here were cut off when I repotted it. The idea being that the plant virtually became a propagation. So that was that bulb, and then we've grown this one, and this one is this year's growth, which has still not produced a full-size bulb, which if it's under a lot of stress that would be explainable, but that doesn't really explain the 2 spikes on that single growth, does it? Anyway, that's a no ID hybrid again. This effectively is Hannah's plant. It was from a friend who died, and she was presented with this as a memory of him, but she can't look after a plant like that in her little flat. Well, her cats would beat it to pieces for a start. Unlike my cat, who doesn't take any notice of my plants whatsoever. He's totally trustworthy out here. I can let him roam around out here. He sniffs a few things, but he doesn't touch anything. Whereas her cats just attack everything. Now she's got 3 as well. Anyway, so this is an untidy, messy plant. I am hoping that having repotted it and stressed it, and it stayed inside last year, went outside this year following a repot, it's had a lot of stress. Now what we've got to do is see what happens next. i.e., are these blooms distorted, misfigured? Are they all wrong? Is there a lot of colour break? The blooms could be the giveaway, yeah? Because if it's a virus plant, the blooms will probably not be right. And I know what they should be right because I've got pictures, because I've had this one a long time. I swore it would be my only ever Cymbidium once. That went out the window, didn't it? Anyway, we will have blooms to check, and then following on from those blooms, given half a chance, hopefully we'll get a new growth. And my friend seems to think that by then it should have re-established itself in the pot, settled down, become unstressed, and the new growth may well be clean. And if it is, then the plant gets to stay. Otherwise we might have to look at getting rid of this, because it's just, at the moment I can keep it separate, and I can keep it separate outside when they all go back outside. I can do it. It just becomes an additional burden on top of what the others are already, because Cymbidiums do cause a little bit of hassle because of their size and the fact that they're in and then they're out. And when they go out, you've got to watch the wildlife, you've got to watch the drought, don't get the sun on them. And then when they come back in, we don't want the wildlife coming back in with them and all that, so they are a bit more of a bother than some of the others, shall we say. Anyway, we got spikes on this, which I didn't expect, and we'll see what happens next. That's all I can say. So there we go, a look at the Cymbidiums, which in the main I think are doing pretty good. and I'm hoping to make, if possible, some may say I don't see how you're going to improve on what you've got, but next year I will try to do much better for those that go outside, which will be all of them, because by then, you know, the ones that have never been out, which is the one that's in bloom, everything else has been out, hasn't it? I think, yeah. Yes, so they'll all go outside and they will get a proper feeding programme next year. As I said, they had the little slow release pellets put around the top of the pot and the hose just used on them, so they never got watered what I would call properly, actually looking to see, you know, the weight of the pot, are they still soaking wet from last time? Tough hose. And the problem is we did have a couple of heat waves, long dry spells with high daytime temperatures for here, so they needed, you know, to be kept hydrated, but they weren't getting fed to any extent. So next year they will get probably 500 to 600 parts per million at least once a week, as in proper fertiliser, you know, mixed up and poured in as a proper watering while they're outside. They may get the hose in between if it's a warm dry spell, but they'll get proper feed, and they will get my MSU feed with added calcium nitrate, so they will get a high nitrogen and calcium feed right through the summer months. And come the later months, as yet undetermined at what point, I will switch out the calcium nitrate to go back to normal feed, reducing the nitrogen down, and then come the autumn time I might switch to a very low nitrogen feed and see what that does, because that's at the point where a good few of them will be producing their spikes, yeah? And by taking the nitrogen down, we might get an improvement in, it's not a bloom booster, it's a bloom encourager, I'm going to call it, but basically a lower nitrogen feed will help produce decent spikes with decent sized blooms and things like that, according to the ancient runes and the tablets of stone, and in my case some people who are in the know. So yeah, that was the Cymbidiums, that was the Sunday chat. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you during the week for whatever. I doubt if there'll be a video tomorrow. I usually take Mondays off, have a day of rest. Most people do that on Sunday, but this is my busier day as far as the video production is concerned. So yeah, I'll see you during the week for more festivities. We've got our on Wednesday, our viewers requested video on Wednesday, and the last of our Project Orchids videos on Friday. What I do on Tuesday and Thursday, well, you have to turn up and find out, won't you? See you next time. Thanks for dropping by.